The City of Chicago's summer safety plan takes effect. It's a massive, multi-layered approach. This week, Police Superintendent Larry Snelling talked strategy and said it's time to stop making excuses for criminals. Let's get to the point.
From Chicago's very own, with WGN political editor Tahman Bradley, this is The Point.
For a city in the midst of an historic drop in violent crime and, in the opinion of experts, gains in police-community relations, the months ahead mark a big test. Chicago's top cop was especially visible this past week. He and Mayor Brandon Johnson say a key strategy for a safe summer includes keeping Chicago's youngest residents occupied.
Our adults have to do more. If anyone believes that this effort is solely the responsibility of government, they're mistaken. And here's the thing, you're seeing this all over the world. This is not unique to Chicago, but what will be unique for Chicago is that I'm counting on our parents and our adults to do more. Know where your children are, know what they're engaged in. We have just laid out a plethora of activities that they can engage in. And so that's why we are using every single entity of government, for our Chicago public schools, to our park districts, to our libraries. There's not a place, a neighborhood where activity can exist that won't be available.
Superintendent Snelling stopped by City Club on Wednesday, where public safety was on the menu. Snelling discussed the overall improving crime numbers.
Morale is up, crime is down. Is your work done?
Oh, no.
Good.
Oh, no. This is the city of Chicago. The work is never done. But the work is never done anyway. The one thing about policing, we have to be fluid. We have to change with changing times. There are new trends that pop up, new things that occur, and we have to have a focus on those specific issues that may pop up. Robberies. When we see an increase in robberies, we've got to do something about that. So it's training specificity around those things is extremely important. So to focus particularly on something that's that serious and that important, it's important for the department to put together plans to make sure that we not only bring that type of crime down, but to stop it as much as possible. We look at particular areas where these crimes are occurring. We look at data, but it's not just about data. Oftentimes people look at numbers. Numbers only tell you part of the story. Policing is nuanced. We have to look at the human side of everything that's going on, because if you remove that, then you're not really getting to the core of the problem. So we focus on human beings. What's happening in our communities? Who are we reaching out to? Who are we touching? And it's not just one community, it's the entire city of Chicago. This is the problems that occur even in the most dangerous neighborhoods will eventually affect everyone in the city. So when we get everyone in the city to understand what it is that we're focused on, and we're all working in partnership together, we can get the job done. This is how we start to bring crime down. So I'll never spike the football. I'm never going to throw a party, because the work is ongoing. I can appreciate the work that's being done. I'll throw a party for the officers who are doing the work, but my work doesn't end.
For years, politicians and police have been looking for a way to stop teen trends in the city from turning violent. Mayor Brandon Johnson has resisted tighter curfew rules. Plans to involve social media platforms where the gatherings are often publicized so far have not come to fruition. Superintendent Snelling told reporters that it's time for real accountability for young people and parents.
When we start to talk about inner city youth as a whole, it's not just about the teen takeovers. It's that when we believe that these young people don't know any better, we're insulted. It's an insult. It's an insult to inner city youth who are not engaging in this type of activity. We have kids from the inner city who are doing great things. They're not committing any crimes. They're not harming people, and they're not harming each other. So when I say making excuses, what I'm talking about is removing accountability on the part of these young people, removing accountability for parents to make sure that they know where their children are after curfew hours, to make sure that their kids are not in harm's way where they can end up hurt or even worse, being shot or killed. And we've seen this. So it's important that there is a level of accountability and some structure around how we deal with young people who decide, who make a conscious choice to go out and engage in violent behavior, violent acts against others. It can't be tolerated. These are things that we have to stop and we have to put an end to, because it creates a level of trauma for other people. I know we usually talk about trauma to teens and young people, but what about the trauma that they're causing for other people? So we have to make sure that there is a level of accountability for those who are going out with the purpose of creating chaos and havoc in this city. There's a difference. If I have a kid who steals because he's hungry, then that's a kid that we should be feeding, not locking up. But when I have a kid who decides that with a $700 gun, that he's going to point it in the face of an elderly woman and force her to an ATM and draw out her savings, that's a choice that you made to commit a heinous crime, and you have to be held accountable for it. So those types of crime create trauma in other people. We have to start thinking about victims. We have to focus on the trauma that it causes other people in this city, and we have to put an end to it, and we have to hold those accountable who are creating those acts.
This week at City Hall, 2nd Ward Alderman Brian Hopkins, who also serves as chair of the Public Safety Committee, said the city still has a long way to go when it comes to curbing violence. Memorial Day is coming up. The weather is getting warmer. There was a slight uptick in homicides this year, so far this year. Is the city ready? Can the city repeat that 60-year low of homicides that it hit last year?
Well, we all hope so. You know, there's a variety of ways to assess whether or not crime is rising or declining right now, and certainly the murder rate has been going down for a number of years, and that's encouraging. But there's other crimes that should concern us. Carjacking, robberies, attacks and assault and battery, all of those are starting to tick up in the downtown area. We need a better response to that. I think we should be bringing back our gunshot detection system. There's still a demand for that to help the police understand where crime is increasing. We used to be able to use the ShotSpotter system to identify hot spots when they started to get hotter. We knew where the guns were being fired because of that system, and since that system went dark, we have a lack of information. So that's another tool that we need in the toolbox right now to help us as the summer months approach.
From a political standpoint, given that violent crime is down, shooting, homicides under the Johnson era, does he get credit for that?
Well, he's certainly taking credit for it. I've yet to hear him share that credit with our state's attorney's office, and I think she definitely deserves some of the credit that's being out there. You know, you can accomplish a lot more when you stop arguing over who gets the credit, and when we should all be united on this front. One of my big criticisms of the mayor is he expects people like me, who are solidly pro-law enforcement, we're behind the police, we're supposed to support his efforts to address the root causes, and we do. What we need him to do is reciprocate and join us in full support of law enforcement, in full support of our police, and to give them the tools they say they need. As the superintendent himself has said, he needed my curfew ordinance, we passed it, and the mayor vetoed it. So where's the unity there? Unity should not be a one-way street, and if he expects us to support his efforts at community intervention, he needs to support law enforcement in their efforts to actually enforce the laws on the street.
Alderman Hopkins, thank you.
All right, thanks.
We're back in 60 seconds. It's been a dramatic week in the Chicago Bears stadium saga. Despite days of back and forth between the team and top city and state officials, there's still no movement in Springfield on a bill to keep the Bears from moving to Indiana. The Senate sponsor of the mega projects bill wants more information from the Bears about their Arlington Heights property. And Mayor Brandon Johnson's insistence that a stadium on the city's lakefront is still a possibility has Chicago lawmakers weary of voting to let the team leave the city. Officials with the Bears and the NFL say Arlington Heights and Hammond are the only sites being considered. Today, Governor Pritzker said he thinks everyone can get on the same page by next week.
I'm just listening to the Bears and to the NFL. They both have said, remember, the NFL has to approve whatever the Bears decide they want to do. And so listening to both, there really are only two choices. Do we want them in the state of Illinois, or do we want them to move to the state of Indiana? I don't know about all of you. I would like them to stay in the state of Illinois. Remember, my number one priority has been protecting the taxpayers of the state of Illinois. I do not want to spend billions of dollars on this. I do think, though, that businesses that are moving to or growing in the state of Illinois deserve to be supported. I've always been in favor of that. We provide other businesses with incentives. We're doing the same thing with the Chicago Bears. And so I'm pretty sure that I feel confident that there will be a bill that gets brought up in the Senate, and I'm hopeful they'll pass it and send it over to the House, and that bill will be about whether or not we're keeping them in the state of Illinois or letting them go to Indiana.
Lawmakers return to Springfield Monday. They'll have until midnight on the 31st to get a deal done. And plus they need to pass the governor's state budget, and the governor wants his housing affordability plan to get through both chambers as well. All right, tonight a tip of the hat to Chicago summers. Summertime shy, as some call it. We've had warm weather, cold weather, but we might finally turn the corner soon. We'll leave the forecasting to Demetrius and the weather team. But Memorial Day, coming up on Monday, marks the unofficial start of summer, and Chicago is one of the greatest places on earth to be during the summer. And that is The Point. I'm Tahman Bradley. I'm back with more news tonight at 9 o'clock. See you then.